lots of people, when they contact us, want to see what is the deal here. What's the catch? And I was like, there is no catch. Like, what's the fee? There is no fee. What are you wanting from me? We're wanting nothing. My idea was originally that if I had 50 authors that were all like these little islands and people wanted to find them, it was really difficult. But if we could almost lasso all these little islands and make a bigger island, then people would find us. Because if you want to find someone who's really great author but hasn't got 1 million book sales, where do you find them? How do you Google for something that you don't know exists? Mm-hmm. But if there's a place where you can go where you will find these people, that was the idea, that together we're stronger. So anyone who really engages with us becomes part of the we, whether they like it or not, until they tell me to stop emailing them.
Welcome to Raising Baby Authors. I'm Cassia, your host and a brand new writer. If you feel overwhelmed and lost about this whole writing thing, you're certainly not alone. Join me while I pester my author guests for writing advice and find out how they do it. Because if they could, then why not you? It truly takes a village to raise an author, so let me share my village with you. Hello, dear listener, and welcome back to the classroom. Thank you so much for giving me your time and attention. And let's meet our new mentor today. I have a treat for you, my dear listener. It's author R.A. Howitt. Richard lives in Leeds with his partner and 3 children, who he is happy to rank in order of favoritism, although that changes daily. He has to say that. After writing and not publishing half a dozen novels, he didn't produce a manuscript for 20 years. Such are the scars from rejection. During that time, he was a teacher, a tutor, became a head teacher, then quit it all to return to his first love, writing. The Daniel King series is his first work since rebooting his computer. In every sense. Hi, Richard. Welcome to the podcast.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, yeah, it's a real treat because you also have your own podcast that I have been listening for, since it came out, actually. So I was really thinking, that we should really do a collaboration and something. But you were the one who actually reached out. So thank you so much.
No, absolutely. When I saw, like you say, your podcast, and I just thought, what a great coming together, because we had been following each other anyway on Instagram, and yes. You do notice these things, and there's no competition whose podcast is best or anything like that.
Exactly.
So it was nice to finally meet and come along.
Yeah, of course. I was super excited talking to you. So let's start with a standard way that I usually start and then go into all the different things you do, because you're really like a one-man band. So I'm really excited to talk about all the things that you're doing with your website and the podcast and your writing. But let's start with writing.
No, thank you.
So tell me about your background. We know already a little about you always wanting to write and that being your first love, but why are you writing? What is your motivation?
So when it came to writing, if we go back just a little bit, if you allow me, when I was young, 14, 13, all I wanted to be was a writer. And I'm sure everyone's got that dream. But when I talk to a lot of people through my through my podcast, they'll often say to me that they were an avid reader, that they absolutely loved reading when they were younger, and that love of reading spilled into writing and they wanted to be a writer. For me, it was the opposite. I've always just loved writing and reading once I knew how to read. I wasn't an avid reader as a child. I used to play sport and I used to write and tell stories, and it didn't matter if I was, playing with toys or whatever it was, I wanted to tell stories. And when I got a little bit older, when I was sort of 16, 17, I started reading more and more. But the real reason that I read was to get better at writing. Writing was the be-all and end-all. And I didn't tell anybody. Amazingly, when I was younger, I didn't tell anybody that I loved writing. I wrote a book. I remember writing a book when I was about 14, and it'd been about 50 pages. And that was my, just love spilling over in a 6-week holidays. And my brother sort of tore it up and wrote all over it and scribbled all over it. But It didn't matter. Just the process. Writing for me has always been this release that builds up if you don't write. And it was just something that I absolutely loved. Then when I went to university, again, I was good at science and maths, so I went into and did engineering because it was almost like a secret that I wrote. And whilst I was at university, I wrote more and more. And by the time I came out of university, everyone expected me to go into an engineering field. And I thought to myself, but I love writing. And I knew at this point, I'd got old enough and mature enough that I thought, I can't tell people that all I want to do is writing. So I went home and spoke to my parents and said to them, I want to write. I don't want to get a job. And my mum and dad, who had paid me for me to go to university, were looking at me like, where's this come from? Is this a fad? And I was like, no, it's what I've wanted to do for so many years. And because of that, I just want to give it a go. So from university, I took 2 years out before I got a job. And I basically locked myself into my room at home and taught myself how to write because I wanted to get better. And I wrote and I wrote, and I could write, 3,000 words a day. I could write 9,000. I wrote just, and that's all I wanted to do. And I produced books, like say 4 or 5, and then it just came about that somebody showed me a competition for a children's book, a middle grade, and I entered it, and it was a TV company that was running the book competition, and I won my local area, and then I won sort of Yorkshire, and then I won the sort of like north of England, and I got down to the last 10 from about, I think that I probably elaborate over the years, but I think it was about 4 or 5,000, and I got through to the last 10, and the deal for winning that was that you got a Waterstones window deal. It was a 5-book deal. It was just so immense. It was literally life-changing, this deal. And I didn't win. And again, there was the start scars because up until that point, I'd left uni. I'd started writing, and it felt like everything in the universe was just taking me to this one spot, to this one place where I got this deal, and this competition had come for me, and everything about it told me that this was the big break. And then all of a sudden, it didn't happen. And I sort of half-heartedly tried to get that book published, but at the same time, sort of give up a little bit and didn't, and stopped writing. And I went into teaching, and like you said before in the bio, that I worked my way up and I became head teacher, and it took me 15 years, and I didn't have time to write in that time. I had a family, and I hadn't written anything. And when I became head teacher, all of a sudden, it was like something changed, that I'd stopped looking at the career and trying to go up and up. And all of a sudden I just had this feeling that I wasn't doing what I was meant to do, even though again, everybody thought that I was good at it and I was supposed to do it. I just didn't feel that I was doing the thing that I was meant to do, that I loved, that was my passion. And so with 3 children and a mortgage and everything else, I quit. I left the
Oh,
profession.
wow.
And from there, it was really a light bulb moment, but at the same time scary because I had no profession, but all I knew was that I needed to be able to write, and I needed to be able to work on that, and I need to be able to be in a field where I felt like if I did succeed, it would get me where I wanted to be. And so I created, well, I had a sort of an epiphany that I wanted to help other people, because the more I looked into it, the more I saw other people that weren't happy and other people that wanted to be writers or whatever it was, that was their passion. And so I had this idea that I would create this website, and it wasn't just for me, it was to grow a community that supported people who follow the passion. And so came New to the Scene. New to the Scene was for people who hadn't had the bestsellers yet, because I'm pretty sure David Walliams doesn't need me championing him to sell any books. He's got that covered. But there's people out there who write books, and really talented people who write books, and people don't know about them. If they're not on billboards, if they're not on tables, if they're not in windows, people don't know about them. So I wanted to help them showcase their ideas by producing this website where the books on that website wouldn't be a crowded marketplace. You wouldn't pay me to have it on my website. That I would just choose and work with people who really wanted to work with us and wanted to grow a community. So I had this dream, I had this goal that the website would have 50 authors, and these 50 authors would have 100 books, and that was my goal. And if I did that, that would be amazing. 50 authors, 100 books, and within a couple of months, I had 120 authors and 650 books. And then I said to myself,
Amazing.
right, so how can we promote these people? How can we work with these people? And I thought, right, well, what about a podcast? And again, I had no idea how to do that. I didn't know anything that I was doing. I just knew that it was what I was supposed to be doing. That's it. But I didn't know what it was. So I started a podcast. I bought a microphone. I started researching it and I worked out how to do it. And the podcast came. And then I thought to myself, right, what else can we do? So let's start some competitions, short story competitions, poetry competitions, writing competitions. And again, I didn't know how to advertise it. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know who would come, but I just did it anyway. And that came about. And then I started, and I said to myself, well, I was writing and I thought, this is quite an interesting journey that I'm on. So let's blog about it. So I started blogging about me creating the book and creating this book and trying to get published. And as I'm writing this and doing this blog, and people said, this is interesting because it's not just about a book, it's really about a mental health journey as well. And I was like, that's quite interesting. So we did that. And then other authors, we had someone called M. Jonathan Lee who came on, who was a mental health campaigner and an author. And he started working with us. And now he's writing his biography, which is going to be exclusive to the site. And then we finally got the book published and that came out. And again, there was interest in it, but I wanted to do it where new to the scene, it was exclusive to new to the scene. So that's what the book is. And all these things kind of happened. And just from saying, I have no idea what I'm doing, but that's not going to stop me. I'm going to research it. I'm going to create it. I'm going to find out how it works and I'm going to do it. And again, I didn't have the answers. I just knew that I was asking the right questions. And I just knew that wherever I was going, it was in the right direction. And wherever it takes me, so be it. But at least I'm going in the right direction. So it was a real sort of, midlife crisis, you could say, but it was a real crisis that needed to happen for me to realize that actually what I was doing 20 years ago was right. That was the thing I loved. And I came away from it and I had some good times and a good career, but really you couldn't deny what your passion is, and that's what brings me here. And hopefully the journey carries on, but that is essentially where it all came from.
Wow. I mean, I told you, listener, this guy is just a one man band. It's amazing how many ideas, how many different things you're trying to do at the same
Mm,
time. I mean, I bet a lot of people wish that they would have this kind of midlife crisis that would help them find their passion and be so
mm,
driven and just want to do more and more and more things and try new things. And even if you don't know anything, you're still going to try to do it. That's amazing. That means you're definitely like going on your path, and that's you have this
mm.
some sort of pull kind of that doesn't let you do anything else.
No, absolutely not. And I think at the time I was looking for and really concentrating and thinking about the questions I was asking myself. Things like, if I could guarantee success, what would I do? And if, I had, just 12 months on this planet, how would I spend them? And of course, there would be loved ones and time spent with that. Always, it came back to I would write. I would absolutely write. And, as much as I love reading, I genuinely I do. I don't want that to come across a door. But if you said to me I couldn't read a book for a year for whatever reason, I would be upset, but I would live with it. But if you said to me I couldn't write, that I don't know what I'd do with myself. And the good thing is now that I get up early every morning, ridiculous schedule. My writing time is between 3:30 or 4 o'clock if I lie in a little bit until about 7 o'clock in the morning. I give myself about 3 hours. But
Wait,
that for
what?
me,
Oh my god.
that for me is my happy time. That for me is because the world is so quiet. I don't like writing in noise, and the world is quiet, and it feels like you're the only person in it. So yeah, at 4 o'clock in the morning is my absolute happy time for writing.
Wow. When do you sleep?
I mean, I go to bed early as well. So my children often go to bed at 8:30. So I can quite easily go to bed with them at 8:30.
Yeah,
But
okay,
yeah,
that makes sense. That makes more sense. Just I was wondering while you were talking, you kept saying that writing is like your passion and you have to do it and you were determined to write a book or books, and yet at the same time you started like 10 other things. Do you
mm,
feel like they're taking away from your writing somehow? How do you like reconcile the two passions or the 10 passions that you have?
no, I genuinely think they work in tandem, and for me, I can only I said before that I can write thousands and thousands of words a day. I don't, because it didn't take me long to work out that if I was to write 4,000 words in a day, 3,000 of them would be absolute rubbish. Do you know, I've only got, for me personally, I've got 1,000 words, and to be honest, it may be even at 800. I've got 1,000 words where I know if I write those 1,000 words, that they're going to be the best that I've got in me that day. And as soon as I go over that, it just feels like I'm dragging it out and I'm doing it for the sake of it. So those words were set in stone. Now that for me, 1,000 words for me only takes 2.5 hours. That leaves the rest of the day. And yes, I work and I've got other things going on, but at the same time, the rest of the day, once I've done my writing, I just literally put it to one side, and then the rest of the day is working and trying to get these other things going. I mean, my favorite thing at the moment is we've got a novella project which I just love. So we from the writing competition, I had so many good entries from the short story competition, and I thought to myself, these are people. What would I always come back to what would I really have loved for support? And I thought, if I was to enter a writing competition, if somebody had reached out and just shown me a little bit of love, just a little bit of support, and just said, do you know what? I think you're pretty good. That would have meant the world. And so I reached out to the 20 of them, or 23 of them in the end, and I said, do you know what you've written is fantastic. You haven't won, but what you've written is fantastic. Why are you interested in doing a novella where you have a week, and in that week you write a chapter? That chapter has to be at least 2,000 words, and then you pass it on to the next person, and the next person just has to carry it on. And they
Oh,
can't change the characters, they can't change the genre, they can't go from first person to third person. They've just got to carry it on. And so it's amazing. So every week, every Sunday, I get one person email me with their chapter, and then I sent it out to everybody so they can all read it, and then it's the next person's turn. And getting, obviously, organizing that's quite difficult, but just I love the fact that they're completely on board with this, and they've gone from entering the competition and, oh yeah, it was great entering that and writing that and doing my 3,000 words, but now they've got a little community between them, and we're going to publish that as well. So we're going to publish a few of the stories, but as well as this novella. And I just love that. For me is the pure idea of community, where I haven't asked them to pay anything. They haven't asked for any money from me. There's nothing like that. We just all love writing and just doing something different. So yeah, that for me is the kind of like the epitome of what we're trying to do. The idea that you've got people who haven't been published before, who love writing, who love books, and are up for something that just, yeah, it encapsulates their love. So that's one of my favorite projects at the moment.
wow, that is a fantastic idea. Honestly, it sounded amazing. I think anybody who listens, like if you love writing, just and you want a community, because we talk a lot on this podcast about finding a community, and a
Mm,
lot of authors are struggling with it, and it's hard to find people who are on your schedule, for example, or who have the same goals as you and stuff. But I think your website and your projects are a great way to find a community, to get some feedback, to get maybe some empathy, support, some other person's opinion. That sounds really amazing. I encourage everybody to just check out New to the Scene and newtothescene.com, right?
Yes, no,
Yes.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna put everything in the description, and yeah, definitely. That sounds like an amazing idea. This book, I just imagine what each person would like look at the previous chapters,
Mm.
and I think everybody would like to put in some plot twists or something like that in their chapter, so there's something exciting happens, right?
Do you know what? I have to encourage them a little bit. I think because they don't want to almost upset the person that came before, they'll do it and try and almost mimic or try and do it. And there's very subtle differences in their styles. You know, they're very clearly different people writing this, and they have different ideas in terms of, oh, we'll take the character this way a little bit, and that. But they're more trying to mold into this seamless story, and I'm a bit more like, you know, if you want to completely just turn it on its head and, you know, do a Scooby Doo reveal and this person's actually an alien, go for it. You know, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is really a fun creative choice. I've never heard of anything like that. This is
No,
amazing.
no. My other
Okay.
one was recently we did a charity challenge, and we said to people if they wanted to, because there's lots of events where, you know, you go and run a marathon, or that, you know, you go run through a desert, and they're all very physical challenges. And we had the idea, or I had the idea of saying, well, if you want to do something which is difficult, but at the same time you don't want it to be physical, you want it to be something to do with writing or reading, what can we come up with? So I had the idea of saying, right, we've got this writing challenge, and it was once a year. Hopefully, it'll be annual. And the idea was that at 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning, I would email you with the opening of a short story. You had to then write that short story, at least 3,000 words, and email me back. I would then email you the next opening line, and you would write another 3,000 words and email me back. I would then give you the first. So you had to do 3 stories. So you had 3 stories to do. Each of them had to be a minimum of 3,000 words, and you had to do it for midnight. So you had 15 hours to write 9,000 words. And yeah, quite a few people took up the challenge. It was really interesting, but only a quarter of them managed it. I was like, because that is a really difficult challenge, 9,000 words in one day. And it worked out like at 600 words an hour for 15 hours. You know, it's a real challenge.
Yeah, it just sounds. I think it's good for people who are thriving on like the timed tasks and stuff like that. I'm not that kind of person. I If I have a deadline, I will stress myself out about trying to make it perfect and everything. And yeah, but I think a lot of people are good with that kind of thing.
I think there's a lot of coffee drunk that day as well.
Okay, wow, that really sounds amazing. Okay, so let's maybe for a second come back to your writing. And
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to ask you about your book. So, well, first of all, about the genre. You only write in the middle grade genre, or are you like versatile in your pursuits?
So when I first started writing all those years ago, I never would have thought I would write in this genre at all. My first book was an epic, 150,000 words, fantasy.
Sure.
Like most people,
Yes.
who doesn't love a good fantasy where you can just plot everything? It's kind of like go into the lore of everything, and every character's got a backstory that could be like a marathon in terms of like word count. It was fantastic and a real good way to spend your time. From there, I dabbled with crime. I dabbled with a couple of a crime book just because, again, I really enjoyed the genre, and that was a reading at the time. And it was only because of the competition that I mentioned before. The competition I mentioned before that I entered was a middle grade competition. And as soon as that competition came up, it was just like such a good prize that I had to enter it. And to enter it and do it justice, I had to read around it. And it was only when I started reading middle grade books, I thought, these are fantastic. And for me, a middle grade book is basically an adult book, but instead of being 450 words, it's 250 words. And
Mhm.
all the bits that I didn't like about adult books, when sometimes they can spend a page describing the weather, you can't do that in middle grade because they're not interested.
Thank God. Huh?
And I said to myself, like, to be honest, I'm not interested in that description. So it really is. For me, middle grade books are just saying what an adult book would say in 3 pages in 1 page. And I just love the pace of it. I love the fact that you really could go to town on, the action, the mystery, the plot, or whatever else, but at the same time, not spend that long on describing what I've termed as things that I wasn't interested in. So I loved it. As soon as I wrote it, I loved it, and I never looked back. I read around it, and the more I read, the more I was interested in it. And I just think that anybody, you know, read middle grade. It's not a childish book. Middle grade books, some of the fantastic authors you've got out there who really do hit on subjects which are really tough and really emotive, and yet they do it in such a clever way. And they've really got to think about the words as well, because often your vocab means that you want to use words that you have to take out because you're like, oh, I'm not sure someone will understand that.
Mhm.
So you've got to do it in the most concise way you can. And it's just, when it all comes together, it's an absolute joy. And yeah, I would absolutely write other genres. And the more I looked into New to the Scene, because that is a bookshop as well that sells all genres, and I had to read things that I wouldn't have necessarily read before. And the more I thought, I would happily write a rom-com or anything else, which I would never have, read. But I think my first love would always be for middle grade now.
Yeah, I think I get your point. I never thought about it in this way. I've read very little middle grade just because I think I have a very stereotypical opinion of like this is for children still. So yeah, I mean, I was a child. I enjoyed a lot of books for children and not even sorry, the young adult and the middle
Mm,
grade and stuff. But now I feel like I outgrew them, which is probably not true.
mm.
Definitely not true.
But I think Harry Potter was a great example of almost pulling down barriers, because that was essentially a middle
Yeah,
grade
it
book.
was middle grade, but then it
Yeah,
became young adults while
yeah,
with the other
and then
books.
you've got, and then even like the Philip Pullman, his Dark Materials and things like that. They're fantastic books, and yet they're not adult books. And for me, when I read, and it was Philip Pullman's Northern Lights was the first one I think I read at the time, and thought to myself, this is a fantastic genre. It really can. And the Alex Rider books, and you've got so many Lemony Snickets, you've got so many great books that
Oh yeah,
actually
that one's amazing.
um,
Yeah, yeah.
that actually that really do. They're not childish themes, and my book isn't a childish theme. There's quite a lot going on, which actually you really have to look for the double meaning, and it's a really, I can't stress it enough. Give it a go.
What would be like? I usually talk to romance authors here, so that's
Mm.
just because what I read and what I write. But and when we talk a lot about conventions of genre, so I would say that I have no idea what are the conventions of middle grade books. Are there any rules that are like in romance you have to have a happily ever after? What does have to be there in middle grade?
I think for again, people talk a lot about word count, and that's the typical one where they would say like, oh, a middle grade book would typically be between 45,000, maybe even 65,000, but really sort of 50,000 would be a middle grade book. And in terms of what it actually does, and what there's no, I know there's lots of tropes in everything, but there's no real rules, and there's so many books that don't conform to that. And I don't think it has to have a happy ever after. I don't think you have to have children where you play it down to them, and characters don't, die or anything like that. But for me, I do follow a plan that has all the different steps for me, so that I know there's conflict, and I know that it's moving and the story on, and the character is what they want versus what they need, all that kind of thing. But in terms of the actual rules, I don't think there's any difference for me between adult and middle grade, except really how quickly you get there, and that is for me the only difference. I think it's just a fast pace.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that sounds legit. I also haven't heard any other like specific rules. Maybe I don't know. Maybe some like depiction of violence and stuff like that could be a little more mellow than for an adult book.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any explicit scenes.
Obviously not. Okay, there's one rule then. Yes. Okay. You already mentioned that you have some of the points or the beats that you do. So you are a
Mm.
plotter then.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That for me that's for me is my favorite bit of the entire process. I love planning the book. I
Okay.
could literally, I could, if you said to me just now, you've got an hour, plan a book, I could plan a book for you. I just genuinely, I love that. For me, once you planned it, the writing of the book is just putting the flesh on it. You know, the
Mhm.
bones are there. And really, it's almost like it's done. The story's done for me once the plot's over, and and once the plan's over, and I'm just adding to it. And it ends up not being that way because it changes as you go along slightly. But yeah, I can't understand anyone who doesn't plot. And for me, yeah, it can get so as in complicated that yeah, it's nearly the plot itself is almost a first draft. Yeah.
Ah, so you write like a long outline with a lot of things that everything that you want there.
So for me, I would put every chapter. So I think in chapters. I know you shouldn't really. You can split it up afterwards, but I just do. And
Hmm.
so I would think right, and I go to my template and I put in what's going on, but it will be all the characters, their motivations, how they link, and yeah, the plot itself is. It feels like when I don't do it and then discard it, I have it. So if I'm writing the first section, my plot is there and I'm absolutely referencing it all the time. I copy and paste it, and it's underneath where I'm writing, so I can see it, and I'm highlighting and taking it and deleting it as I'm going along, so I know that I'm hitting that plot. So yeah, yeah, and I know,
Okay.
and you go against Stephen King and all kinds of people when you say plot, but yeah, I absolutely love it.
That was surprising a bit because you were talking about how you have to write and how you find it like putting stories on paper. I just assumed you would like sit down and start writing like from page zero and until 50,000 words, just like keep writing and that's your story.
But I
Well,
do that with the plot. That for me is the plot. So like I say, if you wanted a book, if you said to me, "Can you come up with a book for a thriller genre?" and I'd like it by tomorrow, please. I'd like an outline. Not only would I deliver on that, I would be the happiest person in the world. That would be like winning the lottery for me. And yeah, I absolutely love it.
okay. I was gonna say that you should do some sort of maybe challenge or something on New to the Scene as well with plotting for people who
Yes.
like to plot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I found it fun as well. Like with the manuscript that I'm trying to write right now, I did the draft zero thing, so like a very very long
Mm.
outline, and it actually was quite fun. I think I enjoyed that part a lot. It's mostly like me sitting down and imagining there's a friend next to me, and I'm telling them what's happening.
Mm.
It's more of a like a passive thing, like this happened, and then he said that, and then this would, and then whatever. It is an outline after all. It comes out as an outline, and now I know what's going on, and I can write the actual words. So yeah,
Is it, you call it the Belgian book?
the Brussels book. Yes,
Brussels book, sorry, yeah.
yes. This is the one.
Excellent. And what genre is that?
That is romance. I mostly
Romance.
write romance. I don't think I have patience for fantasy. I don't read thrillers. Like I talk to my husband, he's like, "Oh, let's write this sci-fi. Like I have an idea." Huh, you have an idea?
Yeah.
You write it. I don't want to.
So, see, I don't genuinely. I said how much I love middle grade, and I would only probably right now I'd only write middle grade. I love it, but I don't. My favorite genre to read is dystopian, sort of sci-fi dystopian.
Hmm.
And since 1984 would be my absolute what a book. So
Yes, amazing.
that for me. And again, I like other things. Like I do read classics. Crime and Punishment would be another one that I absolutely loved.
No.
So
That
these
that
are
book is a punishment. Sorry, I'm traumatized from school.
yeah. Well, that's the thing about school, isn't it? It's a bit like Dickens. Dickens should never be forced on to anyone under the age of
Well,
20 because you don't appreciate it. And yet, I came to Dickens. So when I was tutoring, I ended up tutoring people who were doing GCSEs, and through that, I was reading Dickens to them. And that woke me, and I was like, "Oh, why did I never realize how good this was?" And I was laughing, at Christmas Carol because it's a really funny book. And the
mhm.
person I'm tutoring is like, "Why are you laughing at that? That's not funny." And I was like, "Yeah, you don't get it, but I promise you, as an adult, if you read that, that is a fantastic book. But it's just almost given to people too early,
Yeah.
and they don't appreciate it, and they're
And then
forced
they
into it, so they
and
don't.
then they
So
make
they're
you
gone.
find like the themes and whatever. Who cares at
Yeah.
that age, really? I haven't read Dickens because I studied in a Russian school, so Dostoevsky was like go to Tolstoy, Dostoevsky. Yeah, that was maybe I should give another chance
So
to
at the
Crime and
moment,
Punishment.
I'm actually reading Anna Karenina. So
Okay,
I do like Russian literature. So
I
Tolstoy
started
and
it. I
Dostoevsky.
started it, but it got boring quickly for me. I think again maybe started too early.
Mm,
There is a Russian author, Mikhail Bulgakov.
hmm
He wrote in the 30s, 1930s, in the Soviet times. His books are amazing. Those are
mm,
like just Master and Margarita is one of the best things I've ever read, even
mm.
though I've read it in school.
I agree. I think Russian literature is just the classics are absolutely amazing.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of those that write descriptions on 10 pages straight, but eventually it gets interesting when you get to high school and stuff. That there are
Yeah.
interesting themes in books.
But I did get
Okay,
through War and Peace. I don't know about you. I did get through War and Peace, and I did really enjoy it.
so I had for me at home, I had four. So it's 4 tomes basically.
Right.
Yeah, four
I read it
different
as one.
books.
Right.
And we had, I think we divided in the class. Somebody had to read like one, two, three, and four, and then we had to tell each other and discuss because we couldn't spend the whole trimester on only that.
Mhm.
And I think in the first 2 books, I have tabs. Like I have a lot of things that I was writing because I think they
Mm.
give me a character. Yeah, they give me a character to follow. And so I was like tabbing and stuff, but
Yeah.
I did not finish it. It was too long.
No, but that, again, like I say, through New to the Scene, I started reading other things, and we talked that we both really love Kristen Bailey, and
She's amazing.
I would have never read a Kristen Bailey book. I read it because it was going on the website because I'd heard of it, but I would have never read that, and yet I would happily write one of those books. I would happily read those books. You know, some of those stories. Sex Ed was one of my favorite books of the year. It
My
was
God, Sex
fantastic.
Ed was amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And I would have never come to that.
yeah,
So, yeah, although I write one genre, I completely read far and wide around it. Because again, I think you just learn and pick up so much. And again, I suppose I'm a bit of a nerd in that way. A lot of the times when I'm reading, I am looking at styles and writing and how it can improve. But yeah, I would have never picked it up. And yeah, I got so much out of it.
yeah, yeah. That book's truly it got me through a bit of hard times and it made me laugh so much. I really really appreciate. It was my first book by her as well, and since
Mm.
then I've read everything that she has released so far. Anyway, I was asking about plotting, and I still have a question in my head. So, do you use any like a structure, a well-known structure method for plotting, or I know you have a template. Is it your own template or?
So no. So when I wrote the book, Daniel King, I wrote it and I did my first draft and I did a structure and I thought, I've ticked every box. I really like the story, fantastic. And then I started the second draft and I still really liked it. And then, and I implore anyone who's writing to do this, you know, a lot of the times when you read books to do with writing, they'll talk to you about character and plot and they'll talk to you about setting the scene and all these kind of things, which are fantastic. But the one thing that I think that improves you as a writer more than anything is really studying how to edit and reading books about editing and the editing process and structural edits and line edits and proofreading and getting really technical on that. I think improves you immensely. Improve me. That's all I can say. Improve me as a writer to understand that. And I started listening to podcasts and researching. And as I do, when I can't do things, I just research them. And I looked into editing. And the more I got into editing, all of a sudden, this template came up. And it was one particular podcast that said, this template called Save the Cat. And that was my template.
Mm-hmm.
And for the Save the Cat, it was a case of these beats have to be hit. So even if you've already written your book, put your story into these beats, into this structure. And if you've got one beat missing, then the story won't work. And I was like, okay. And I really liked what the person was talking about. And I thought, this person makes a lot of sense. That I bought into it. So I thought, right, I'm going to do that. And I took my story and just as a basis, just says, right, what's happening in my story, and put them into this template. And I had 2 beats missing. And I was like, but for me, the story was completely worked. I was down to line editing. The story was great. My structural editing was fantastic. And then when I looked at it, and these 2 beats were missing, and I thought, do I ignore this? No. So I went back, and I had to write 2 extra chapters of the book to fit in. And those 2 chapters, when I wrote them, it was absolutely right. They were critical. That they were the setting of the scene. So it was right. It was one of my first beats, showing me what the character is and looks like now versus what they look like at the end. And I'd missed that beat off. I'd gone straight into action, and by putting that beat in, the story was so much better. And now I'm just a complete advocate for it. And yeah, that's how I plot now. I have the Save the Cat template, and it goes straight into it straight away, and I make sure that I've got all my beats. And yeah, rather than doing it and it's taking forever now. Yeah, that's my template.
Okay, that's amazing. Yeah, I've heard some. Since it's mostly romance authors, we have Romancing the Beat, which is kind of similar but specific to romance. So
Mm,
I haven't really read all the parts of the beats of Save the Cat, but I'm planning to. I'm getting the book soon, and I'm
mm,
gonna try to learn more about that.
mm.
Okay, so you said you done the first draft, second draft. You went to line edits. Do you have any? Did you hire any editors for your book and for the further stages?
Yeah, so I had people who was interested in the book, but then I felt to myself that it would almost be disingenuous to the blog and the new to the scene ethos if I just went with someone and handed it over. And there were so many indie authors reaching out to me and telling me about their journey, and I really wanted to experience it myself. And I thought to myself, do you know what? I'm going to do it myself. We're going to publish it as new to the scene. We're going to publish it, and if we can make this one book work, then we can publish other people's. We can be the publisher, and we can give them a good deal, and we can work with them, we can promote them, we can do all the things that people are saying that traditional or hybrid contracts aren't doing. So I thought, you know what, we're absolutely going to do this. So I did all the, like say, the structural, and then I thought to myself, I was gonna skip that stage and just not have an editor, and because it is expensive. But I thought to myself, you know what? I would advise. You've always got to think to yourself, what would you advise someone else to do? I would advise someone and say, this book is your legacy. It's going to be there forever. So don't scrimp on it. Don't miss out. Do it to its absolute best. So I went with a bit of trepidation, thinking, are they gonna do anything? Are they gonna change? And one of the people who were part of the Instagram group, part of the community, was an editor. And this person, Natalie, she reached out to me and she said, before I'd even said anything about wanting to work with an editor, as new to the scene, thought about listing editors and saying who's reputable and who's not, because we've got all these indie authors who must want to work, some of them at least, with editors, and they don't know where to find them. And through that conversation I had with Natalie, I started to just drop it in and saying, I'm looking for an editor. Would you be interested? And she would. And so we kind of got this really strong relationship going before we even, talked really about the book. And she came on board and just said, yeah, I'd love to do it. So Natalie came in and did a line edit, and then from there she sent it back to me, and I had a lot of trust in that point. I think you've got to have a lot of trust in your editor, because she made a lot of suggestions, and she did it in the loveliest, sweetest way possible. She was very much like, oh, I really like this. However, it could be written like this, and it could be even better. And I was just like, you don't have to sugar it. Just say, that's better. So everything she suggested, I just said, let's go with it. I'm not going to argue. It's a fresh set of eyes. I'll completely go with everything you suggest.
Mhm.
And then from there, so part of her process was she does a line edit, then sends it back to you. Then you can send it because you've then looked at it, you can send it for like a re-edit, which at this point, I think we both said it's in a good place. So can I send it to you for a proofread instead? She did that. And once that was done, I was the one who formatted it. So I, again, just researched how do you format a book ready for publishing.
Hmm.
and worked out and what's the margin size on this, what's the gutter margin, how do you do it, found out all these technical terms and formatted it. In the meantime, I can't draw and I didn't know how to do a front cover, but I knew again somebody who worked with before, who'd done some like a mural for me before, and fantastic artist. And we kept in contact. And I said, "You've done a book cover before, haven't you, Carl?" And he was like, "Yep." So I was like, "Would you do mine?" So he did the front cover in about 3 days or something, like crazy, because he's just amazing. So yeah, they were the two friends that I called on. So Carl the artist and Clever Crow Publishing, which was Natalie. And between them, they did that. And then when it came to the book, I actually put them on the first or second page, with all the acknowledgements and all the copyright things. Because again, if somebody thought to themselves, where can I find someone, where can I find an editor, I wanted to really champion Natalie because she was fantastic, and Carl again, his work, it was amazing. When somebody's passionate, it doesn't matter what they're passionate about. When somebody's passionate and talks passionately, it's just a joy to listen to. And he's passionate about that. And it doesn't matter what it is. If someone's passionate about laying bricks, you might not have any interest with bricklaying whatsoever, but just listening to them talk about it, you almost want to sign up for a course afterwards because it's just intoxicating. And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what it is. And he had that passion for artwork and for drawing and creating. And he would just ring me up and he would ask me this simple, such a question about fonts. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know, Cambria, Arial, I don't know what fonts, Times New Roman. And he would speak to me, and by the end of it, I almost wanted to research. I wanted to know about fonts by the end of it, just listening to him.
Hmm.
So yeah, they were the two people I worked with. They were absolutely fantastic.
Amazing. Yeah, it's really nice to think how big of a community you've created, right? It's all kind of your people now.
Mm,
This network of people that can help each other, and just anybody who's a newcomer can just find support almost
mm.
instantly on your website.
Yeah, and there's people that have come along and have said, I've just written a book, and I have had to say to them, look, I can't put you on the site because I feel it's unfair to the people who are on it. There will be that change over time, but I don't want to crowd the market. That was never the intention.
Hmm.
However, and we thought to ourselves, we've got to help these people. So we created a blog where it's the Origins blog, where basically someone can just write about themselves, write about their books, and we'll put that blog on the site and we'll put it on Instagram and everything else to try and help them. So yeah, whenever anyone reaches out to me, it's amazing how it just leads to other things, just by starting a conversation. And I was amazed when I first started this how accessible authors were. Because again, you think about authors being almost this mythical being that is just there somewhere, on a mountain, on a snowy mountain by a log fire, writing, and that's their job. Somehow they've been hired to do that, and it's not that case at all. It's somebody who's writing, who wants to have relationships with their audience. And actually, if you go on their websites and click on their contact forms and just say to them, your book's fantastic, and ask them a question, or ask them to come into school to talk to your kids, or whatever it is, they often do it because actually they want to have a relationship with you.
Yeah, yeah, I found that also the case. I have been contacting authors who are my favorites, and just I would just like write the message with closed eyes and just send it, and like, okay, it's there now. Maybe they will never answer. Like, probably they will never answer. And surprisingly, how many answers I got from
Mm,
people who would just like love to join. Even like I tell everybody it's a very small podcast. There's
mm.
going to be probably 20 views on your video, so don't get your hopes up. But like, I love you very much, and I would really love to interview you. And people are really just happy to help, and just happy to chat about writing.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. I found exactly the same thing, and people, like I say, they just love talking about the things that they love with somebody who has the same feelings. So talking about books, I think people would happily do that all day.
Yeah, exactly. Well, talking about books, we've talked how you wrote your book, but we've actually not talked what the book is about. And let's at least announce the title of the book.
Yes. So the book is called Daniel King, and then it's got a colon. It's ASD, which stands for someone who is autistic. So Daniel King, ASD, and then in brackets, alien specialist with dad. So it's kind of a play on words because although the main character has ASD, it's not something that defines him. And I really wanted that to come across. So in the book, Daniel, who has ASD, his grandfather is attacked by aliens, by this alien spider. And Daniel finds out about this, but no one believes him. No one believes that aliens are real. And so he can't let that go. He can't just go back to school. He has to have that fact that aliens are real. And that pits him against a secret government department and the aliens themselves. And he goes on this adventure. So it's sort of like the curious incidents of the dog in the nighttime versus Men in Black. It's kind of a mixing together of the two, where you've got this main character who, like I say, has ASD, but I really wanted that to be something that is his greatest strength. Because often, and I found this when I was in school, often like children can look at something like ADHD or ASD, they can look at that as being a real negative. And actually, when you look at it in society, people like that are some of our highest flyers, some of our most successful people, because they're ultra focused or whatever it is. So it's just because in one setting something doesn't work because it's not set up for you, doesn't mean that part of your character, can't be used as, your greatest strength, your greatest asset. So I really wanted it to have my main character someone who has maybe not always thought of, his neurodiversity as being a positive, but he would never, the things he does in the story, he wouldn't, he would never be able to do without it. It really is like his superpower. So it's the first in the Daniel King series. So Daniel King, the main character, I've written. I'm in the sort of second draft stage of the second one, and I've planned the third one, and there's lots of different ideas I've got of going different places, but yeah. So every book will be Daniel King colon, and then a word. So the second book is Daniel King, The Asset. So it's a series where the main character, like I say, goes on this journey of adolescence and really understands, like any child would, their place in the world, and grows up throughout the story. But yeah, I wanted a character who, people often, literacy is either a window to the world or it's a mirror. It shows themselves. And I really wanted it to be that people could see him and either understand more somebody who is neurodiverse, or they could see themselves, but in a positive light and not feel sorry. There's nothing to feel sorry about him for or negatively about him. This is someone who, his granddad, aliens are real, and he's going to prove it. And the reason he's going to prove it is because of that neurodiversity.
Did you have to do a lot of research on that topic?
Well, I had been through school. I was sort of a special educational needs coordinator, SENCO. And there are lots of children that sort of unconsciously played their part and inspired me. Ultimately, I'd been in, seen lots of situations and lots of children, and they were the ones who, again, the way they looked at the world and the way that classmates or even parents could look at them, they were the ones who sort of inspired me to write the book, really. So yeah, I wouldn't say lots of research just because of my career and what I'd done for those 15 years before that. But yeah, the main character means a lot to me.
Okay. Well, that sounds like an amazing book and series. It might be something like, like a children's movie or something like this. It sounds like a cross. What did you say? Cross between Men in Black and what?
So the Curious Incidents of the Dog in the Nighttime.
Oh, I'm not sure I know about this one.
So the Dog in the Nighttime, it's quite a famous book where it's written by someone who's got Asperger's.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's the next door neighbor's dog is killed, and he goes out and he investigates it. And as he's investigating it, he's investigating that but you as the reader find out so much more about his dad and his mum, and there's so many layers going on, but he
Hmm.
sort of sees it on a very sort of factual, superficial level of, this happened and everything's black and white. But you as a reader see so much more. It's like another book that I used to love was there's a boy in the girl's bathroom. That again, Louis. I'm gonna say his surname wrong. Louis Sachar, the author who wrote Holes. But that book again, you've got someone who is a bully, but you see all the things that contribute that. See all the things that are leading to that, and
Hmm.
all these peers and himself. They view the world one way, but you as the reader can see all the other subtleties that the author suggested, and that's what I really wanted. That character who is acting one way, but you as the reader see all the different layers that are making up, his relationship with his mum and his dad and his peers. And yeah, and to boot, you've got the mystery and you've got the sort of the adventure of aliens. Who doesn't love aliens?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I just you said it like cross between one and the other, and that reminds me like if you are like querying for an agent, you have to like provide the comp titles, say that my
Mm,
book will whoever likes this book will like my book as well. So you have those
yeah.
in your pocket basically.
Yeah.
Nice.
So again, it'd be things like, if you liked, the Lockwood investigations, and if you liked, this, and if there's so many books that, like, say, the Alex Rider series, or like The Curious Incident Dog in the Nighttime,
Hmm.
or, there's so many the books that you could compare it to. But again, the agents, it's another one where I hear lots of people, really wanting agents, but you know, bless them, there's only so many agents. And if I was an agent, realistically, to give someone your time, you're going to take on maybe half a dozen clients a year, realistically. So if
Hmm.
500, 1,000, a million people, contact you, and you're only taking on five, then there's not much
Yeah,
room.
of course. It
But
doesn't mean that the other couple of hundreds are bad. It's just
no,
yeah, of course.
no, and it's difficult. But like I say, I always find that really difficult to pitch. Do the elevator pitch.
Hmm.
Do that in a minute and say what, and it's not even to an agent. If somebody, a family friend or someone says, what's your book about? I think most people, even like when I said to you, oh, the Brussels books, most people, there's like a knot in their stomach, like, oh, I really don't want to answer that, because it's so personal, because you're invested, and you feel like whenever you give somebody that, it's really difficult in a minute to justify it and not make it sound a little bit rubbish. Or you go the other way and just give them like an hour's diatribe into what it is. But at the same time, you really are laying out a bit of your soul for someone to judge, and it's really, I always find it really difficult to do that.
I think I always had an opinion on that. I mean, from one side, for me, I think it's just a very good exercise. Like if you want to try to
Mm,
do like a conceptual pitch for your book, it's a good exercise. However, I've heard very famous authors on other podcasts. I think what was that? Authors and Agents podcast. I found it because Jessica Joyce was on it, and I really wanted to listen. And then there's also a bunch of other authors that I love, and she always asks about their latest book. So like, tell
mm,
me about your latest book. And when author starts saying it, you can see basically, I think, where the idea started from them, because someone
mm,
starts with like the basic idea of a plot, but most of the authors start with like, well, it's about this character and this so it's from the
mm,
characters for them. It's not about
mm.
what happened, it's about like the characters themselves. So it's always interesting to hear where you start talking about it, because this probably is the thing that matters the most to you, or where the idea came from.
I think if it's not character led, I think it's really hard to get people to care. Your audience has got to invest in the character, and there's so many books and so many stories that it's, the reason you've got a favorite author really is because the way they describe stuff, the way they write things. It's where someone's written that that really engages you and you like and you go back to. You know, when I was younger, I used to really like Karen Slaughter books, and that was a way that she'd write, or Jeffrey Deaver books. You know, and that was the way that he'd written. You know, as a genre, it wasn't anything different to anybody else who's writing crime books, but it was the way that you've written, and every single one that you know, that you liked, it was the character that you invested in. You know, that
Hmm.
you either fell in love with or hated or, you know, had empathy for. And whatever it was, it's the character that really you remember and also that you invest with and have a feeling. And if you come away from a book, and it doesn't matter what book it is, if you come away from a book and you not invested in the character, you don't care about the character, then you'll only have that a superficial feeling towards the books. Truly, you know, it'll never really mean, it won't be something you pick back up. It won't be something you read again. You know, you'll say to someone it was okay or it was not, but you've got to invest in the character, and that's true of film, TV, or anything else. You know, if somebody asks you what your favorite TV program is, but generally speaking, you start to picture and describe a character. You know, like the main character from a Peaky Blinder or something like that. You know,
Hmm.
it's the character that and the actor that plays it is the characters that you really invest in.
True. That's true. Well, last question about your book. So you have chosen the self-publishing path, but you also have done something special with your kind of publishing strategy. Can you share about that?
Yeah, again, it's probably one of my, you know, daft ideas. I really wanted to, again, produce. I really thought about what makes you different and what makes you stand out and what is different. And for me, everyone just wants to get on Amazon. That's the
Hmm.
thing. They think that if I get the KDP, or if I just get on Amazon, you know, whatever it is, that's it. And really, Amazon, you can't beat Amazon for delivery times. Fantastic, you know, next day delivery, it's amazing.
Hmm.
And you can't beat Amazon's prices. They can always outprice anybody and drop it down.
Yep.
But they don't actually promote you. You know, if you just go on there, they're not engaging with you and doing anything. They're just there to deliver the book, is the way I saw it. And
Hmm.
so I thought to myself, I really want people to buy this book, but at the same time, I want them to come on and maybe see what we're doing on the website and maybe find something else as well. So our strategy was that we would only sell, and we are only selling at the moment, on New to the Scene. And we would do that for so many months. And then we will push it out and let other bookshops and sell it, and, you know, get it as far and wide as we can. But for that
Hmm.
initial first sales, we really wanted to create a niche, unique product where if you're buying off New to the Scene, then you really are getting a first edition, a first run first edition. And when it does get further into the world, we'll change the ISBN so it will be a second edition. This is the
Hmm.
only place you can get a first edition, because I thought to myself, you know, what does make people, you know, interested in something? And it usually is, if it's just, if it's special, if it's hard to come by, you know, if you've got a Porsche car, you know, what makes you want that? You know, it's not just because it's, you know, gorgeous and you really, you know, you've had a poster on your wall since you were a child. It's also the fact that no one else has it. And
Hmm.
so I thought, rather than putting it far and wide and being the tiniest fish in the huge pond, let's just make this product where you can just get it in one place. And then again, it gives us a chance to interact with people. It gives people a chance to interact with us. But yeah, just for a certain amount of time. And after that, we will, because at the moment we haven't got a worldwide distribution, so we will have to put it onto places like Amazon. But to
Hmm.
begin with, we really wanted to create a product that only we had.
Okay. So yeah, I think since it's in the beginning stages, maybe later on we can have a little follow up and see how that went for you, because I'm really curious actually about the experience.
Yeah.
Well, before we close the episode, I just wanted to ask you, you're talking about new to the scene and you say we. So you have a team that works with you, right?
I often talk about we as if I've got some kind of split personality, and it's lots of us. Um, but yeah, we do. I say there's a team, so there's there's myself, and then there's, I mean, I count everybody that contributes to it. So if you write a blog for us,
Mm-hmm.
and if you write an article for us, the fact that you've let me on this podcast now means you are part of the we. You're with us now. But yeah, there's Dan who creates the website, and fantastic. I couldn't do what he does with the website, and again, he's someone who really knows his fonts and his colours and all the things that I have not a clue about. But yeah, he can go into the detail. He could have a conversation with Carl about fonts and be there for hours. But no, so there's Dan who creates the website, and then there's myself who sort of drives all the content, and then there's just other people, who contribute. Whether it be someone who does our accounts or whether it be someone who forwards our messages. But really, I say we a lot because I really do think it's not just me alone, even though most of it is me pushing out the content, coming out with the ideas and driving that.
Mm-hmm.
And it is my baby, it is my idea. But at the same time, anyone who comes on, anyone who contributes, like I said about Jonathan Lee, who's coming along now, and he's producing. It really is a case of anyone who's willing to engage with us is part of the community, and as such, we will champion and help them as much as we can. And lots of people, when they contact us, want to see what's the deal here? What's the catch? And I was like, there is no catch. Like, what's the fee? There is no fee. What are you wanting from me? We're wanting nothing. We just, my idea was originally, again, that if I had 50 people, 50 authors that were all like these little islands, and people wanted to find them, it was really difficult. But if we could almost lasso all these little islands and make a bigger island, then people would find us. Because if you want to find something that no one else has found, if you want to find someone who's not a bestseller, if you want to find someone who's a really great author but hasn't got a million book sales, where do you find them? And that was the idea that, well, it's impossible. How do you Google for something that you don't know exists?
Mm-hmm.
But if there's a place where you can go, where you will find these people, that was the idea, that together we're stronger. So yeah, anyone who really engages with us becomes part of the we, whether they like it or not. And until they tell me to stop emailing them, and
Okay. Well, I think that's a great note to finish the episode on. I have learned so much. I haven't actually imagined this scale on which you do so many projects on New to the Scene. So to finalize, let's just remind the listeners, like all the handles, where can they find you, and how can they become the part of the community?
so, I mean, we really focused on one platform in terms of social media. So Instagram, I've mentioned it a few times, but Instagram's where you can find us, and that is new to the scene.official. I am trying my best to get my head around TikTok, as in book talk. That's my next thing. I feel
Yeah.
like it's such a hard nut to crack, but it's only a hard nut because I don't know what I'm doing, and I feel like if I can get where I
Honestly,
do now.
don't overthink it. I was worried about what I should do. I have these clips from the podcast. I put them on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram in exactly the same form, and it's
Mm.
fine. It gets 700 views, and I'm okay with it.
So that's amazing. But yeah, so that's the next thing is that. But the actual website. So you've got New to the Scene, which is for people who haven't had their bestsellers yet, where you can discover something new that you might not have come across before, and obviously supporting great people in literature. That is www.newtothescene.co.uk. There's my website. So Dan didn't create this one; I created it, so it's not quite as good. My author website, but I was proud of myself because I've basically been like watching Dan and all the things he can do. And that was my website, which is rahowitt.com. And again, that just has some of the things that I'm up to at the moment, and the books, what's coming up, extracts from the book, any sort of discounts, and yeah, latest podcast episodes, anything that I'm getting involved with. So the main ones are newtothescene.co.uk, my website, which is rahowitt.com, and Instagram, which is newtothescene. official.
Okay, thank you. I encourage everyone to check out the website and the podcast as well. So, thanks for joining me today. It was such a great conversation. I cannot wait for the release of the episode. I think my listeners will learn so much. We will gain a whole new community. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so thanks a lot and have a great evening. I'm assuming we're in the same time zone, so evening.
Yes. No, thank you. And now that we've done this, then you're going to have to come on my podcast as well. You
Of
can't get out of
course.
it.
Of course. Thank you. Bye.
No, thank you. Bye.
If you like what you hear so far, please consider subscribing and tune in for the next episode. If you have burning questions about writing you'd like to have answered, head to my Instagram page at kkalbabooks and leave me a message. Or use my email k.k.alba.books@gmail.com. If you'd like your favorite author to answer your question on my show, again, head to my Instagram or email me to let me know which author you'd like me to invite, and I'll try to get over my anxiety and do it. On the other hand, if you're an author who's published at least one book, traditional or indie, and you'd like to become a guest, well, you know what to do by now. Message me and let's get to know each other.